Okay, welcome back to Cruising on Crypto. I am Craig, and I'm joined again by Greg, who's also known as Bludex Online. He has a new Medium article out, which we're going to discuss. He's got a new sentiment number that you've calculated that you're going into your final numbers, your final rankings. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about what you see on the screen behind us, which is what's going on with this market. It's been falling for a while. Have we hit a bottom? That's the big question everybody's asking. So thanks, Greg, for coming back on Cruising on Crypto. It's good to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again, man.
Good. So what we talked about off camera ahead of time is if you zoom out on this chart, this is the chart of Bitcoin against the US dollar. And if you zoom out just a little bit, you're going to see how much it's fallen lately. And anybody who's been watching the crypto, you can see it's really taken a haircut in the last little while. But over the last 4 or 5 days, it sort of feels like, maybe a double bottom there. We're kind of flattening out. So my question to you, and I'll tell you after I hear what you have to say, whether you think we are bottoming here or if we got another leg down. What do you think?
Yeah, of course, it's always really, really tough. I mean, the things that I think are pretty good is you do see this kind of double bottom here. If you can almost say a reverse head and shoulders, and you could see the massive buy volume that came in when it started dropping below 40K. Tons and tons of interest here, propped it right back up. Right. So you're right, potentially, that this could be a near-term bottom. Maybe it's a bull trap. Maybe it can fall back down. Who knows? I think there's some more Federal Reserve news coming out soon, so we'll see what happens. But it's a pretty good day so far.
40 is a nice round number, so that's usually it gives it some support as well too.
Yep.
So now that it's kind of stayed above it twice, it probably has a little bit more support than it would have otherwise. So we
can hope so. Yeah. It could. Yep.
And everything kind of marches to that drummer. Like Bitcoin is it leads the pack, and then everything else sort of. If Bitcoin's bullish, then most everything sort of follows it in a bullish phase. Exactly. If Bitcoin gets hammered, it's very few. There are always an exception, but there's very few coins that can go up while the rest of the market's going down. So we got that good news that maybe we've bottomed, and then we want to talk about how does that reflect on the various DAOs and the ones that you've been tracking in your Medium article.
Sure, exactly.
This is your latest list?
Yeah, so if you want to look at just a price performance, right? So we think in the last 24 hours, with Bitcoin and Ethereum doing pretty well, we could see some of these Rebase tokens coming back a little bit too. Yeah. Hector DAO, definitely the one that is way in the lead among all the Rebase tokens in the last week, in the last day. So there's a lot of positive activity there for sure.
Do you know what the reason behind that? What are they doing that's making people excited?
I'm actually not sure. I haven't dove real deep into to their Discords or their announcements or anything. But if you look on CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap and stuff, they trend very highly. People that their marketing is pretty fantastic. Mm-hmm. And actually, I raised their score a little bit because of this. Because as you mentioned, I added this now social sentiment score. So it's not shown here, right? So I used to have 4 pillars that went into this the scoring system. It was innovation potential, treasury strategy, risk, and value. And I finally put social sentiment in there too. And I use a variety of things to calculate social sentiment. It's a combination. It is very, very. There's a lot to be left to interpretation with it, but stuff on Twitter, with stuff with activity there, stuff on CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap, stuff in the Discord, right? So whether the overall sentiment, how positive is it or how negative is it? Because as we know, that absolutely plays a factor in these things and their potential to go up or down in the short to medium term.
Do you factor in number of followers at all, like Twitter followers /
Yes.
Discord followers? Yeah, because a project that has a gajillion followers is more likely to have support. If people are spending their time on their Discord, chances are they're invested or they're planning to be invested. So there's probably some value to that, as opposed to a brand new project just opens, they got 100 followers. I mean, you can't really hope that those 100 people are going to be able to support the price, right? So.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yep. For sure.
So I used to be an investor in Hector. I'll be honest, I actually sold out to move money into Time Wonderland. So the number one on your list, but Hector wasn't doing much for me for a while there. I only had a small bag anyway, and I thought I just don't need to follow it right now. I'd rather put something into something I feel is a little bit more bulletproof. It's in this low price environment that we found ourselves in. There are benefits to getting into the bluest of blue chips. And so I made that decision. And I kind of timed that wrong because Hector had a really good week. So I was like,
Sure did.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, my only concern with Hector is, again, it seems like they have a great team. They have a really slick dashboard. Looks like that their roadmap is really, really good. But every time I load up their treasury into like Zapper and just to see, okay, what's it doing? I mean, it's just completely liquidity pools and stables, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at their market cap to treasury value, so their market cap is 70% higher basically than their treasury value. When you look at risk free, they're basically double their risk free, right? And the way I think about things with this ratio, right, is I look at these things as if they're basically hedge funds or mutual funds or something, that basket of assets they have, right? And how much is it easy for me to own those things outright? Or what can these Rebase tokens do with their treasuries that I can't do on my own?
Right.
And I could own a bunch of stables at a 1-to-1 ratio, no problem, right? So I want to see what's the value proposition, at least with some of these other things like Time Wonderland, right? They have this bet swap venture capital investment where they're airdropping a lot of these tokens out to their stakers. Like that's something I don't really have access to, right? So like that's an opportunity that based on their connections, based on their treasury and everything, that they were able to get that opportunity, and now I get a piece of that for investing in that.
Yeah.
And so that's a reason why I invest in Wonderland.
Yeah, we talked about this in previous episodes, and we're both of the same mindset that if you're going to be a DAO and all you seem to do is take money in, put it in stable coins and yield farm it for 8 or 9%, then I'm not interested. To me, like you said, I could do that myself. I could just buy stable coins and go on any one of these DeFi projects and yield farm it myself. So yeah, let's get into Wonderland now then. Wonderland is definitely doing what all these other DAOs, a lot of these other DAOs have been talking about wanting to do. And that's to invest in other projects that they see a bright future in, and then taking those coins and either airdropping it to the stakers to reward time stakers, or putting those coins into the treasury to build the treasury value, which should bring the risk-free, or the treasury value up, gives you a little bit more support on the price of time. So
exactly.
The one they just bought was you called BetSwap?
BetSwap, yeah.
And they've got a bunch of other things. I don't know if you have enough to give us some of the other things they've talked about in the future, but I know they've talked about actually just delving out into the kind of the real world and sponsoring music concerts and doing other things like that, which gives it a lot more publicity, which is kind of what a lot of these projects need is free publicity.
Absolutely. I think if this is a prediction, it could go either way, right? And again, we should give our disclaimer, right? Not thinking this.
All right, we should say that right off.
Video is financial advice, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they absolutely. I believe Danny Sesta had some connections in the music industry and started closing deals for having an advertisement for Wonderland money at a bunch of music festivals across the world. But the thing is, before that's really going to catch a lot of traction there, it has to be easier to invest in, right? Because as you know, with this stuff, with managing our private keys and going to the site and everything, it's a real pain in the neck. So before that can really take off, they have to fully decentralize, right? Because if it's way too centralized, most of the real, like the top 5 exchanges are not going to list them, right? Because then they're going to be too much like a security. If they could fully decentralize them and make them really like DAO vote type things, then they have a better chance of getting listed on an exchange. They also need way deeper liquidity in their wrapped memo token, right? Because it's pointless to buy time on an exchange because you have to go stake it to get anything out of it. You can't just own time outright. It'll get deflated away forever. So it seems like they're in a real big push to really deepen the liquidity of wrapped memories. As you saw, some of the bonds they're offering for the W memo mempool have an attractive discount right now. So it's clear that they're really making a push to deepen that W memo liquidity, not only to go more cross-chain with it, but to eventually be able to get enough volume in it and enough to get it on a centralized exchange.
Mm-hmm. And they were talking about
that. It's
that.
off to the races.
Yeah, yeah. And then they can just sell the wrap memo right on a centralized exchange. You don't have to go through all that steps of buying time and putting it in and staking it and all that stuff. You could just buy the wrap memo right off the bat, and then that wrap memo will grow based on the yield that it's getting. And I just wanted to mention too, Time Wonderland used to be your number 2. You've actually moved it to number 1 based on
number 1 now.
Based on the fact that it's dropped in price, so now it's not as
well, the social sentiment score also helped that too.
That's true. Yeah. But I remember reading in your Medium article, you're saying, your one complaint for why it was number 2 and not number 1 was because it was a little bit too richly valued.
Exactly.
And now it's come down into a kind of a more reasonable valuation level, right?
Not only that, but they're offering these features, right, that I don't have access to personally, right? It's very, very hard to get the degen box UST looping anchor protocol strategy, right? Very hard to get into that. A lot of times on Ethereum, so I pay Ethereum gas fees. That's annoying. They had that over the counter trade where they got a lot of discounted spell, right? And then they have these now like kind of venture capital opportunities, right? I don't have access to all those things, so I'm willing to pay a premium to get access to those things by owning a piece of Wonderland. So
exactly.
And that's like my whole investment thesis here, right? I talk all the time. I get into fights all the time on Twitter and stuff about the APY really, really being absolutely meaningless in a lot of these. And if anything, it does more harm than good, right? People think that they're making passive income with this stuff, but the sell pressure that it causes absolutely cancels out. It lowers the total liquidity available, right? And you can have impermanent loss in the protocol owned liquidity, and the fees in the liquidity pool likely wouldn't make up for the downward pressure from all the selling, from all the rebases, right? So I'm actually not a huge fan of high APY in a lot of these projects, and it's something I don't even take it into account at all anymore when I'm judging a project for how good it is of an investment. You can see on this here we have a range from 100% very low down here with Spartacus to with Euphoria 250,000% or so. I look at them both the same in terms of the APY. It doesn't really matter to me.
What they might want to do then is lower the APY, but then put on the main screen, the dashboard, the percent the treasury has grown in the last month. Like if they weren't paying out so much, the treasury would grow in leaps and bounds, right? Because the problem with why a lot of these, the treasury doesn't grow much at all is that a lot of the money that's coming in with new investors is just going right back out to the existing stakers, right? So if they it
doesn't work like that. So how it works? So if you looked at the chart for like almost any of these, right? If they haven't had new bonds, their treasury value stays exactly the same. It totally flatlines it. They're still paying yield, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look at any of these ones that are in stables, when these things are paying these APY, it's not like they're taking actual treasury assets and selling them and paying them out like you would a normal dividend in a company. What it is there's these manufactured tokens that are put into this runway that happens during the bonding process, and it's basically like they're giving them out for free with this yield, right? So they're printing their tokens, even though the tokens are worth $2,000, $195, whatever. They're printing them for $0 and giving them to the stakers, and the only thing they can really do with those is sell them eventually, which puts downward pressure in the liquidity pool. But it does not impact the treasury at all as the rebases go out, whether it's 1,000,000% APY or 100% APY. The treasury value does not change when those rewards go out. It's only the dilution and inflation. What
I meant is probably the way I'm wording it isn't right.
Oh, sorry.
The fact that they're giving out these free tokens is in essence increasing the circulating supply. So what I'm getting at is the only way, if you have a treasury that stays exactly, like they don't mint any bonds and the treasury stays at, let's say $1 million, but then they keep giving out these free reward tokens. They're expanding the circulating supply, which means that each token holder has a smaller piece of the treasury. But if the treasury was growing, like we're talking about with Time Wonderland, if they have kind of out of the box thinking of how to grow the treasury to make it grow fast, then you could almost say, well, why are we worried about paying out a high APY? Let's show people that we're growing our treasury at a certain percentage. Then you could say, like a stock. They don't pay you every day that you own the stock. You know what I mean? A lot of companies don't even pay a dividend. What you're showing is that the company's getting larger, like Apple or Tesla or whatever. The company's getting larger due to increasing their sales and their bottom line. Mm-hmm. These are maybe increasing their treasury by doing inventive things to come up with yield, places that they can get yield with their treasury to grow the treasury bigger. But they think they often market themselves on, we're paying out 80,000, 100,000, 300,000% APY. And people don't realize, like you were saying, okay, they're paying out this great rate of return, but they're also increasing the circulating supply of the coins at a very high rate too. So like you said, it's kind of a net wash.
I'd offer one counterpoint, and that is that when the rebases happen, right, everybody who's staking is getting that same exact rebase percentage, right? So technically, everybody's ownership percentage of the token is exactly the same, right, when the rebases go out. So it completely nets out. The only thing that happens is there's harm to the liquidity pool, the protocol-owned liquidity, because of the sell pressure. Because when a rebase happens, right, it's about usually 0.5%, right, of what the current, say, market cap is. That market cap actually does go up by 0.5% when the rebases go out, right? Because you take the token price and you multiply it by the circulating supply. So you just artificially increased your market cap by 0.5%. But the thing was, nothing changed. Nothing changed in that instant that rebase happened. Nothing changed with the fundamentals of the project. Nothing changed with the risk. Nothing changed with the treasury. Nothing changed at all. So since that was artificially raising the market cap, it's out of nowhere, so it should be sold to cancel it out because people were just given free money. So that the situation is basically arbitrage. That's why these tokens all go down over time, because the rebases happen and then they're sold, and the liquidity pool shrinks. And that liquidity pool is in the treasury, so then therefore the treasury kind of shrinks. So really, with these APYs, nobody really wins. But there's the meme of passive income, and people think they're getting excited and getting all these rewards, and they're almost falling for it, right? So, and I'm not saying that the Rebase token is a bad model, right? Like it clearly has some benefits and it works. I just think that the way I do it is I personally look at the valuation metrics and the valuation ratios, because that makes the most sense to me. And when things drop below their backing value, they have so much more in their arsenal to buy back their shares. And if they drop the whole like $1 backing thing and don't do APYs, a lot of them aren't. If you see some of these things that are really, really oversold, like Spartacus and Fortress and such, and Papa and things like that, they see this APY, this yield in front of them, and they're like, well, we have to like hold all these resources so that we can buy those things if it ever falls back down to $1. Well, if you got rid of the APY in those, you don't have to wait for that anymore. You can buy them immediately. You would be doing the protocol a favor to buy the tokens anytime it dropped below the risk-free value, and there's no risk to it at all by doing that. But because the APY and the future things are out there, and you need to keep some to buy those back, it kind of like holds them prisoner in their own protocol. So I know I say some very controversial things. Some people agree, some people disagree, but it's just my opinions on how I analyze it.
Cool. So what other ones on your list of still 15, right? You haven't added one?
Still 15. I'm really thinking of dropping it to 10 because this is such a pain in the neck to keep up with.
Yeah. Fortress has dropped. I just noticed their market cap to TV is really low now. Did it? I guess it just...
Yeah. So I looked into this today, right? Yeah. And because
the price dropped a lot, I guess.
Oh yeah, I mean, like they had the most epic fall right here.
Okay.
In the last 7 days, down 60%. Last 24 hours, down 32%.
Wow.
The reason for it is because they have this. These things are, all these protocols are trying to make these stable coins. I think, in my personal opinion, is I think people need to knock it off, right? Like these decentralized stable coins, the ecosystem does not need 20 decentralized stable coins, right? They serve a purpose for sure, and we should have a few of them, right? So things like DAI, UST, MIM, right?
Yeah.
DeFi, like it's great to have those, but all these people trying to make stable coins, they're not doing DeFi and any favors by it, because then you got to maintain all these pegs and all these different things, and Curve gets all bloated, and it's just it's such a mess. I think like if you don't have like $1 billion, then don't get into the decentralized stablecoin play, and that's what Fortress is trying to do. That's what Spartacus kind of try to do, and I just don't think they're. And maybe they're seeing something innovative that I'm not seeing, and maybe it's really going to work out and be revolutionary. But, I just leave that to the experts.
Yeah. I like the low value, like the cheaper valuation ones, but more important to me is the treasury has to be growing. They have to have a roadmap ahead that shows this is what we're going to do to make our treasury grow. So we're not just counting on new new purchases of bonds or new money coming in. It's got to be. I think we talked about this last video, but Wonderland was. I heard rumor. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. They were actually considering never selling any more bonds, and just saying our treasury is big enough.
I thought I heard that. Yeah. But clearly I looked and they are today for sure.
Well, you know why? That liquidity pool, I don't know if you can pull Time Wonderland up on your screen, but they've got that liquidity pool with the wrap memo and the MIM coin. So as you can see, in the minting there, that's their word for bonds. They've got the, it's gone down a lot. Earlier today, the W memo MIM was like 11.2%. And I think what it is sometimes they're just incentivized to get that liquidity pool up to a substantial size, so there is liquidity in that liquidity pool, so that there's less slippage when people are trying to transact between MIM and Memo. And I think in the future they want to go on centralized exchange with W Memo, so they want to be able to know that there's liquidity there. So that might have been why earlier today I was able to buy it for 11.2% discount. But if they get to the point where they feel like their treasury is big enough and all that minting new bonds is not really helping, it's kind of just creating new time coins, they might go that route. But that's something I heard. I didn't know if you could confirm or deny that. So
I'm honestly not sure. I there's so many discords to pay attention to, right? I got a job also.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's hard, it's a lot to keep track of, right? I actually rely a lot on folks on Twitter and Telegram and stuff to for the late breaking news, to go sifting through all these discords and
then send you a link. Just send me a link when you find it.
Yeah, so it's so much to stay on top
Me too.
of. Yeah.
Me too as well.
But if there's anyone I trust for sure to do a really good job and do what's best for their users, I mean the whole Frog Nation ecosystem. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, right? Like one of the ones they own is Popsicle Finance, right? Mm-hmm. And ICE, they had a big hack last summer, and a lot of people lost money from that. And it was just a mistake in the code, right? It happens. They made everyone who lost money on that. They made everybody whole. They said, look, we're going to make all you guys whole. We're going to get you guys all your money back, and they did, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was like probably millions of dollars, right? So if they have that much of a reputation, right, where they're going to do that, the risk goes way down to me, right? And their reputation goes way up. Mm-hmm. So, again, the only issue I have with them is their valuation, but their valuation, they probably deserve that multiple, right? So you're paying 80% more or whatever to get their access to their treasury and what they do with it, and it's probably worth it, especially when you consider in the future what these things will be worth, right? These will grow fast, and people will buy it more. It'll have a lot of buy pressure and such. So,
Is there another one you've got on your eye on?
I know Umami's dropped down a little bit. That I think that's a kind of a cool one. They have a nice diverse treasury. OtterClam has actually been one that shot up a lot that I've been really interested in. They've have a really fun community. Like they just have flat out good vibes. They have a really tiny treasury, right? Only a few million. Their valuation's a little high, but overall, like they're just very fun. They have these NFT plays where they drop out NFTs. They're loyal stakers, and they have some land in one of those like DeFi games.
Oh yeah,
they're just a fun time. Good vibes all around. So I'm keeping an eye on that one. If that gets to a good value, I'll probably look at that one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
ROM DAO, the second last one, we were both talking off camera, and it's in your Medium article, that their first campaign starts, I think, January 15th. And that will be the test for you and me to see if this valuation, which seems crazy overpriced, is actually because they're going to be airdropping NFTs as part of the game as a reward for playing well in this DeFi project. And if they start airdropping NFTs that are worth something, then there's a return there, and maybe this MC to TV being a little on the nosebleed side is a little bit more justifiable. And also, if the game's fun, then a lot more people will invest in the future. But until they get that first campaign under their belt, I don't know. Who knows, right?
Yep. Yeah. Maybe we could be leaving a lot of money on the table. We could be, it could be the next best thing, and we don't know it. And you can't win them all, can't catch them all. So I definitely wish them luck, and I hope it works well with following it. But yeah. And another one that I thought was interesting recently, second on my list is Squid. They actually just bought a few Bored Apes, right? And I thought that was really cool. That because that's another thing. Like I can't get access to Bored Ape. I'm not going to spend hundreds of $1,000s on one, but I would love to own a piece of one, right? Yeah. And there are a few different DAOs that have like kind of the fractionalized ownership of NFTs. But when you can own it in kind of like this hedge fund, it's at a good valuation. You get all this exposure to ETH and ETH derivatives and such. It's just a more diverse treasury, exposure to more diverse assets. So I thought that was kind of cool too.
That's cool. Should we talk about Spartacus maybe?
Sure. Yeah,
Let's
we can talk about that
Spartacus.
one. Of course, yeah, their valuation is crazy good, and we were pointing this out. Their APY is nothing. This one, I think, has been one of probably the better performers, more stable. Yeah, that's the third best performer in the last week. But again, you have to think about these things should have their value subtracted by their rebases. This has had almost no rebases in the last week, so there wouldn't be as much sell pressure. The ones that have high APYs will absolutely be down, anywhere between probably 10 and 15% just from the rebase sells alone. But because this one had no APY, it didn't have that downward pressure. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a value play, right? I don't know how it's going to turn out. Again, I think about these treasuries as, what would it take for me to own these things? And it looks like to me like I'm getting double my money's worth, right? Even though they're not doing much, exciting things with treasury. I did look in the Discord today. It looked like Phantom is like the coolest DeFi ecosystem right now, right? Like with things like Liquid Driver and Tomb Finance, Spooky Swap, Spirit Swap, all these things. There's a lot of really cool stuff on Phantom for DeFi. A lot of really unique strategies. And the whole Phantom ecosystem in the last day has actually really blown up. All the DeFi plays in there have like really gone up a lot.
Yeah.
And like take advantage of it. And I would challenge Hector to do that too. Like take your right now we're in a great dip, a great buying opportunity. Deploy your treasury, right? Just some of these things are not that risky, right? Simple liquidity pools, a MIM FTM liquidity pools, put it on Liquid Driver, restake the tokens you get from there. That's not that risky. It's not that hard to do.
Yeah.
And it's there's a lot of opportunity there. So they were talking about potentially looking into putting the treasury into that, but they move a little slow.
Yeah,
that's why their valuation is a little rough. People perceive a lot of risk there.
So, well, I've been in that one for a long time, and needless to say, I'm underwater. But at this point, I'm like, it's just a valuation play. And hey, if they airdropped everybody the treasury value, I'd be ecstatic, because then we double our money, right? So,
right.
But it doesn't seem like that's in their plans. They keep thinking, well, we're going to do something, but they're moving at a glacial pace. I mean, they don't, nothing changes quickly with Spartacus, and that's the only disappointing thing. And that's with me and a couple of my friends, and we talked about it off camera, who are still in it. We're like, what's the time value of money worth? Like, if you're going to sit there hoping that eventually it makes it back to its backing level, what happens if that takes a year?
Right.
Could you for a year? Could you have taken this
money in a year is fine by me.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah. And there is
I'm not betting the house on it, right?
Right.
I mean, it's just a little bit.
But to me, what it is this seems to go sideways. In a bad market day, Spartacus doesn't get hit. On a good market day, today was a good market day for Phantom. A lot of things, Spartacus doesn't really go up.
I know.
So it sort of just stays sideways. It's literally like you own stable coins. And so that's why I say if this market, because we've been saying this market has been going down for a while, maybe this is a buying opportunity. And if everything starts screaming higher in the next month and Spartacus is still sitting here at $22, I'm going to be kind of pissed, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm like,
I'm just wait. You're right. I don't have a ton of money in it, right? I'm just waiting it out a little bit and see what they do. I do look in the Discord a lot, and I do believe that they're short-staffed and that they do have good intentions. They tried something with Spartacus DAO. Maybe it'll work out. Maybe it won't. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I see good intentions, not the best execution. Definitely a community that absolutely ran away screaming. I don't see a lot of downside risk. In my personal opinion, right?
Yeah.
Again, not financial advice. It could absolutely go down.
Do your own research.
They could take the treasury and run any day if they really wanted to. Right? There's really nothing that stops them from doing that. So there's risk in that perspective, but just based on my gut, I feel like it's one that's I just don't want to be on the sidelines when inevitably something does happen. Well, not inevitably, but when something does happen where, it shoots up like 100% in a couple of days. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. There's a couple of new ones on here, I think. Is Sol Invictus new?
No, that's always been there. Yeah, no,
just haven't
Solana's been there
remembered that
forever. Yeah, that's like the blue chip Solana Rebase token. And I don't talk about them much. I do like them. Like their dev, I think, is really on top of things. Really good with communication.
Mm-hmm.
My only concern has always just been the valuation, right? They're 50% above their market cap to treasury value ratio, 50% above it. And it's mostly just stables and Solana. I think they're going to have a cross thing with Terra Luna, I think, soon. So, it's just not exciting enough to me yet. I mean, if you're going to be in the Solana ecosystem and you want exposure to a Rebase token, like this is the one to get for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just waiting for it to become a little more exciting. I want to see exciting treasuries.
I know, me too.
Yeah.
That's my main thing now. I got into way too many of these without really knowing what their roadmap was with their treasury. And now that I've had a little more time in them, I'm kind of like, yeah, man, if it doesn't have a dynamic treasury that's going places, a great, really well-defined roadmap for the future, I'm just not interested. So I think at this stage, to be quite honest, and saying this before I do it, if we get another bullish phase, I'm going to be lightening up on some of these DAOs that I got into because I just have not been wowed by what they plan to do with the treasury. Spartacus will be one. If I can get back to just the risk, like just to the $35, $40 range, I'm probably gone. Unless, of course, they start coming out with news events that say we're doing this that I'm not aware of right now. But a lot of these ones haven't wowed me with what they're doing with the treasury. And if we get another bullish phase, I think that'll be my opportunity to maybe lighten the DAOs a bit and maybe diversify into other things. Maybe put a little bit more into Time Wonderland because I feel like I diversified into a lot and then I didn't have a lot of money per se relative to the other things to put into Time Wonderland. So I'm slowly, as I sell, like I told you, I sold Hector. When I sold Hector, I put it in Time Wonderland. And if I sell something else, I might put a little more into Time Wonderland. So that's just me saying what I
Hector
might be doing.
was a better one in the last.
Oh, I know. Who knows? But it's funny. It's like you. I said I haven't heard anything that would make it rocket, like that. So it just sometimes it's just in these markets they're so thin. Sometimes it takes one whale to decide he wants to get in, and it'll push the price up because there's not a lot of liquidity. It's a pretty thin market. So
Hector is a lot of time the people who are new to this space, right? People who are talking to their friends, they have a wide network, right? So people that Hector has they're not listed on Coinbase, but there's a Coinbase article about them where like how you can get Hector, look at it, outside of Coinbase. So like their name is like getting out there for sure. Again, they're very highly trending on CoinGecko and such, and a lot of times that's what people need, right? That might be the first Rebase token that they ever lay eyes on, and they see it and it's like, oh wow, look at this APY, look at the project, a lot of people are talking about it, and they go on Discord and everyone's all happy about it. So and then they invest, and yeah, it definitely could have a lot of potential for sure.
My favorite
social sentiment is important.
My favorite one on Phantom is Phantom.
Yeah,
that's my favorite one on Phantom, and I also like that it's cross river to Moon River, which I have other ones on as well. So I like the fact it's cross chain, and I also like its chart looks good too. It hasn't been hammered like a lot of the other ones do, so I like that.
Yeah, Phantom. Now they had a huge pump a little over a week ago, right?
Yeah. So that's why the week looks bad. Because last week they did really well. So that's why I was going to say I didn't think it was down 20%, but yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're at $110 right now, but they were just a couple weeks ago they're at like 58 or something like that. Yeah. So, but their treasury is absolutely like one of the most diverse treasuries actually I think in the entire ecosystem, right? And they pride themselves on that. So I for sure like them for that. Their value, they're still a really good play, I think. I increased the reason they came down a little bit is their valuation, and I did knock off a few points with risk just because I'm still a little uncertain how this FUD token, this FHUD token they have, which is almost kind of like a stable coin, I just don't know how that's going to totally pan out. So it's marked as a treasury asset on there. and I don't know how much faith I have in it. I just need to see more happen with it long term for me to get me more comfortable with it, and then I'll remove the points I took off for the risk and give it back to them for sure, because the stuff that they're doing is really interesting, and their Twitter page is great. I think they're commenting on everybody's stuff. So I agree. I like them too. I would say they're one of my favorites also. Another thing is like I've marked off for risk is because I see on their bonding page all these things that people are bonding with all these different assets, and I look at the treasury contact and their documents, and I don't see it in the treasury anywhere. So maybe there's like multiple treasury contracts that aren't listed in their documentation, right? So yeah, maybe like I can dig into that deeper too. So when things aren't like really clear to me and the documentation is not really good on the sites, I start getting a little
nervous.
bad feelings.
Yeah,
nervous, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, but they're still probably pretty good.
Yeah. All right. So is there one more you want to mention, or are we pretty much covered the new and inventive ones?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, so the sentiment score, it gets added into your total Bludex score?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's in a hidden column here. There's 5 columns, and they all have different scores, kind of a 1 to 10. They can be fractionalized, so they could be like 0.5 and such. And then different elements of them are weighted differently. It's not like 20% for all 5 of them. Some of them are weighted a little bit more. Some of them are weighted a little bit less, right? And I'm constantly tuning it, right? I don't really. I mean, like I look at this list right now, and it kind of feels right to me when I look at it from top to bottom in terms of like how comfortable I am in investing in them. Based on, again, valuation, risk, treasury, social sentiment, all that stuff like that. So, it moves around all the time. Don't take it to the bank. I'm always tuning it and trying to figure out what's best. And I'll definitely take history too and make sure to put it into that, so that, if I made some wrong calls, why was that? And do a lot of that research and be like, okay, for Hector's a great example, right? They performed extremely well. And it's probably because of social sentiment, right? So maybe I'm not weighing that accurately. But I think that a lot of it also has to do with just the whole phantom ecosystem has just been exploding in the last couple of weeks. I think it's just a momentum thing, right? That the total value locked in the phantom ecosystem has grown a lot and continues to grow every single day. So when you see like a smaller chain out there that's having all this attention, so I think that's probably a big part of it too.
Excellent. All right, Greg. Well, thank you. This has been a great episode. We'll do this probably about every week as you come up with new stuff.
Like that.
Because you almost every time you put out a Medium article. Oh, and I will definitely put the links to his Medium article and his Twitter, as I always do, in the description below. But definitely go there. He has a little write-up on each one of these, all of them this time, right? You talked about each single one. Sometimes you talk about...
I did, yeah, that was exhausting.
Yeah. A lot of times this Medium article, you might only talk about half of them, and the other ones you just kind of,
right.
Because they were probably not much has changed since the time before, but this time you talked about each one, probably with the new year. You wanted to talk about
the one from Monday. I think it was Monday.
Yeah.
I put a note on all 15 of them, right? Yeah, I'm not going to do that every time. I usually just I do the whole list, I do all the analysis, and I'll point out like 5 or 6 interesting ones to me usually. So yeah, I might even skim and if Fortress doesn't turn things around with this whole FUSD play that they have, like they have a day or two to like get their things together and figure out what they're doing, and or else I will definitely drop them off the list.
Be down to 14 instead of 15.
What's that?
You might be down to 14 instead of 15 next time.
Yeah, exactly. I might try and just get us to a top 10 list again, just from the time it takes, and it's just there's so many of them.
Yeah.
But
the downside with that though is there's probably some that you're like, hey, this one's pretty good, but it didn't make my top 10. And now you never discuss it. Maybe, that's the downside to it. Because I'm sure there's a few, like you've talked about ROM being pretty low because of the valuation, but you're intrigued. So if that's with a top 10 list, they wouldn't even be mentioned, right?
Yeah,
so,
the fact they're doing something innovative, right?
Right.
I won't ever put one in here, a new one in here again, unless they are innovating, unless they are doing something that has never been done before, right? Some of these have not innovated much, but they've been around for a while, right? So they get points for being around, not rugging people, basically.
Yeah,
so,
not rugging.
Right. So, but like if someone new wants to get on this list, they have to do something very, very different with it, where it's very, very innovative. That I want to see things that grow treasury in new ways outside of the treasury. So like relationships with other protocols, for example. I mean, the only one on here that I know of is Squid, that has like the NFT sales that go into the treasury, right? Almost all of these, their treasury grows from bonding, and bonding or minting, whatever you want to call it, is a very inflationary thing. And so it does, I don't want to say more harm than good, depends on the discounts and some other factors and such, but it's not a complete net positive usually to the protocol. One that's actually caught my attention, and I don't really know them or anything well. I'm definitely I don't want to shill them or anything. It's just one that I'm seeing a lot, like people talking very positively about, is this Warp dot bond, where they're gamifying the Rebase token, and they have seems like a pretty decent team. Like the art's really good, like the Discord is really popping. And they have this whole concept where there's like different spaceship parts and different planets, and you bounce between the planets, and like the Rebase, the APY, goes higher on some other planets. So there's time to travel between them. But otherwise, it is kind of just basically a Rebase token with a gamified element to it.
Cool.
It's just really slick, and they have all these different partnerships with a lot of things in the Polygon ecosystem. So I'm keeping a very close eye on this one. I normally don't look at upcoming launches too much. I usually wait for things to be out there in existence for a little while, but this is one, and they're a docs team, right? I wouldn't be talking about it all if it wasn't a docs team, right?
Yeah.
And again, there are some on my list. There are teams on here, a lot of teams on here that are not
doxed.
Still.
No, I know. Yeah. So, gives it more credibility in my mind if you're willing to step up and say, I'm so and so, and I'm starting this project. Yeah. Excellent. So maybe we'll see them in a future one of our broadcasts.
Yeah, I don't know when they're launching. It's probably the next couple of weeks or so. I don't know.
And I know how you are. You probably won't want to list them until they've proven themselves for a little bit too. So.
Yeah, it might be hard to list because they might do things so differently that you might not be able to apply standard valuation techniques. I bet ROM's going to be like that too. Yeah. Hard to know what your valuation should be when NFTs are kind of a unknown quantity, right? So. Yeah. But I'm interested in it. I don't know how it's going to play out too. It could be like Rome, right, where it's like it could go either direction. Yeah. But I'm intrigued, so I'm following it.
Cool. So keep us apprised of that if you get on the next. Like we'll do this next week probably, and by then if you know more about this new launch and how it's going, and maybe if it's not on your list, you could at least bring it up. We could talk about it. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right, Greg. Well, thanks for joining us here on Cruising on Crypto, and I'll see you in a week.
Sounds good.
All right.
Take it easy,
Talk
man.
to you later. Bye.
Bye.